Hey everybody, it's Jason from the Texas Gun Vault 2, and we're back out here in the garage for another First Impressions video. And I know it's been a few days since I've made a video for this channel. I have just been super busy with my regular kind of line of work as a musician and teacher. I've just been super busy, and I had a recital to play over the weekend, and anyway, I've just been doing a lot of that and haven't had a lot of time to make content here, but I have been very diligent in trying to go to the range every night to film something for upcoming either product reviews or range reports, and to kind of give you guys some, I guess, behind the scenes on what the filming schedule is like, because I have to do all of this stuff after I essentially work all day. In fact, right now it is 8:30 at night, 8:35 at night, and I have been teaching music since 7 o'clock this morning, and I got done at about 7:45 tonight, and I had enough time to get a little bit of dinner and then bring some stuff out here to the garage and film this. So it just never stops, and the Texas Gun Vault literally is like a second job. But it's a project that I absolutely love. It's a labor of love. So anyway, the next week or so is kind of interesting because as a teacher, we typically get the week of Thanksgiving off, or we do around here. So next week I have off. So Friday night kind of begins this long, would that be 7, 8, 9-day break essentially. So during that time, I plan on filming a lot of videos. So I thought what I would do is try to be proactive and get as much stuff at the range done as possible, and then have everything kind of edited and or the range footage edited so I could create the scripts, or I call the bullet point scripts, because everything I really do is kind of off the cuff. I just know what I want to talk about in each segment, and I'll be able to essentially kind of knock all these videos out and already have so much range footage. The only thing I have to wait to film next week would be the stuff I need to go for the longer range footage for. So for example, I have my friend Richard has lent the channel a Ruger S-FAR, and I am going to film both that at the 25 and 100 yard range, but I'm going to do that in the same day. So I need to wait until I literally can go there during the day, because I can't access the 100 yard range any time of the day like I can the VIP lanes. So I can go at 2 o'clock in the morning and go film content at the 25 yard range. I can't do that with a 100 yard range. And then I have a Nemo Arms 300 Winchester Magnum AR that needs to get reviewed at the long distance range. And I might have a suppressor review if I have enough ammunition, and I'll film that. But everything else I'm trying to go to the range, and then film all the content for, come back, edit the footage, get the scripts ready. So starting Saturday, going through the week after, I'll be out here just pumping out content. So the people that have lent guns to the channel and things to the channel, I'm trying to get through the stuff as fast as I can. Normally I try to get more videos out, but I'm trying to do this a different way because of my schedule. Anyway, that's like a little bit of behind the scenes, what's going on here at the Texas Gun Vault. But I do have 3 things to talk about when it comes to kind of a first impressions video, because I have been working diligently on some suppressor reviews. I've talked about those in the past. And I recently reviewed and finished the video on this Knights Armament SR30. And when I reviewed this, I used this particular suppressor right here, which is a Knights Armament, and let me get the right model, because these are a little bit hard to keep straight. This is the QDC CRS PRG, and essentially it's kind of a flow-through, low-resistance, kind of full-size 30 caliber suppressor that uses the QD mounting system, or the new QD mounting system from Knights Armament. So you have that ratcheting system. So I reviewed the rifle essentially like this. So then, based off of how much 300 blackout ammo I had, I said, hey, you know, I have the ability to review 2 other suppressors. So I actually made 3 videos, one on each suppressor, using this as the host weapon because all the suppressors are Knights Armament. which, by the way, I have to give a huge shout out to my friend D. You guys hear me talk about him, local fan and subscriber, because he donates his time to the channel, and also, as I mentioned in the reviews, he fills out the paperwork to allow me to be able to film this content. Okay, so it really means a lot that he would invest that time and essentially resources to do all the paperwork, because it's kind of a nightmare to do. You know what I'm saying? It's just busy work, but I really do appreciate it. So the three suppressors I reviewed is this one here, the 762 QDC CRS PRG. So this is the first one that I reviewed. It kind of has that old style Knights Armament kind of golf ball texture to it, which looks like the old NT4 suppressors, which I own one of those. And I use that on my Mark 18 build. But this kind of looks like it, but it's not really like a heat shield. It just kind of has that golf ball texture, so it's more aesthetic than function. And I've learned a lot about these Knights Armament suppressors. Now, number one, these things are freaking expensive. In fact, I think I'm going to mention, I finished the review on this one, but I got the footage filmed on or edited for these. I'm going to mention in every single review, pretty much the biggest downside to any Knights Armament suppressor is the cost and the availability. These things cost literally 4 times the amount, and sometimes 5 times the amount of many of their competitors. And the availability is hard because they don't release many of them to the civilian market. And they're just hard to come by, and they're expensive. But these are all 3D printed suppressors. So it's amazing that Knights Armament has mastered that additive manufacturing. So all of these are made of stainless steel and Inconel, which I do like. So they're heavy, they're not like titanium, but the Inconel is one of my favorite materials because it's corrosive resistant. It also dissipates heat pretty quickly, and it's very durable. The downside to it is the weight. But of course, these cans are made for military and police contracts, essentially. So this one here is, once again, the 762 QDC CRS PRG. So what this means, 762, obviously 30 caliber suppressor. The QDC means that it uses the quick detach system, which I showed you a moment ago. The CRS is pretty much the model, so it's like their full-size can. And then PRG means that it is the newer baffle system that is like the low pressure or like low resistance. So if you look at the end cap on this thing, you can see how it has like these openings around the end cap. And it's kind of like what I think Huxworks does, where I don't think the internals of this are like the Huxworks suppressors, because looking through it, it looks like we have kind of quasi-traditional baffles. It's hard to tell because these aren't user serviceable. But you have some gas that gets trapped in here, comes back and then out the front. So they try to funnel as much gas out the front versus coming back into the gun, so the shooter doesn't experience gas coming out of the ejection port and so forth. They're supposed to keep the guns a little bit cleaner. Whether they do that, I don't know. Actually, this gun got filthy, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But, so let's talk about this one. This suppressor has an amazing sound, amazing tone to it. I honestly thought when I was shooting 300 blackout supersonic through it, I thought I was shooting subs because it was so quiet. And the low resistance baffle design works. It's not as good as the Huxworks one, but I like the cans to have a little bit of back pressure, because when you're running subsonic through it, sometimes the subsonic ammunition, and I was running 200 grain Winchester through this, that ammo is right on the cusp of being able to run in this gun. And this gun does not have an adjustable gas block. So for the most part, it runs, but you can tell it's almost short stroking, and then depending on the individual round, you might get a short stroke or might have a problem feeding from the magazine. So having that little bit of extra back pressure, I think, made this gun run a little bit more reliable with subsonic. This suppressor, great sound, low resistance. It's just heavy and big, but I like it. I gave this thing almost a perfect review, with the exception of cost and availability. And of course, I love the color. So a very good suppressor, and probably out of the lot here, this was my favorite, and it was the first one that I reviewed. I kind of think I should have reviewed these in the opposite order, but I guess in a way I learned so much doing it in the backwards order from what I think is like the latest and best to the older design. So the next one that I reviewed is this one here, and pretty much it's the same thing as the previous one, but shorter. So this is kind of like their K model, I guess we'll say. So the actual model in this one is the 7.62 QDC CQB PRG. So once again, 7.62, 30 caliber. QDC goes on to that muzzle device, same way, easy to get on and off. And we have, CQB, I guess means this is like close quarters combat, essentially. So it's their smaller can. And the PRG means it does have that baffle system. As you can see, it kind of has that end cap where you're going to have the gas come out the front. So this one works as well because it's smaller, the pitch is higher, it does not suppress as well, and it has more resistance. You can definitely tell. This suppressor, going back to this one almost has 0 point of impact shift or a ballistic change on both super and subsonic ammunition. So when I test for that, this is a very consistent suppressor, barely changes anything. This suppressor, using exactly the same ammunition, the same gun, the same optic, not changing the 0, this one changed the ballistics and the point of impact wildly. Like, the groups were good. The groups were still tight, but I can't remember on this one. I think on this one, like, it suppressed, like, the group went up like 5 inches at like 25 yards. It was crazy. And the ballistics data is all over the place. So it's consistent whether it's suppressed or unsuppressed, but with the suppressor, this thing changes the performance of the ammunition dramatically, especially on subsonic. So I don't like that aspect about this suppressor. All of these, because they use Inconel, actually dissipate the heat pretty darn quick, and I should mention that. So this one, I think, would be a more popular suppressor because it's smaller, but I'm telling you, if you don't care about size, this is the way to go. The full size, you get maximum suppression, you get much more consistency out of it, and I think it's just a better suppressor. But I understand why some people love the shorter stuff. And really, you're not really getting that much of a savings when it comes to overall length. I mean, what is that, an inch, inch and a half maybe? So this one, I haven't filmed the garage portion yet, but I've edited the range footage. This one's going to get, I don't know, 3.5, 4 stars. It works. It's nice. But after shooting this one and reviewing this one, it's not the same. It's expensive, hard to get, and you don't get the same results. And then finally, I was able to review this one. I think this is one of their older ones. I'm not 100% sure this one is still in production. Now, this one has that golf ball texture to it, but this one actually has an outer shield to it. So that actually is a little bit more functional. It's more like the old NT4 suppressors. And this model is the 7.62 QDC CRS. So this was the CRS PRG. This is the old CRS. So this does not have that flow-through baffle design. So you can see the differences here. So you can see the older design is definitely more narrow, and you don't have the ability for the gas to come out the front. So this is more like a traditional suppressor that most people think of. Now, this is also 30 caliber, and the internal volume, even if you look at the kind of the CQB one, you can see that the internal volume is a lot smaller too. So I was not expecting this one to have the same suppression, and it definitely does not. It's still pretty good though for 300 blackout. I don't think this would be effective on a 7.62 by 51 or 308 rifle, but for a 300 blackout, it's pretty good. But this is where I started to have some problems, okay? And of course, these are going to be suppressor reviews and not a review of the gun, because I've already reviewed the gun and literally gave this thing 5 out of 5 stars, like 5 out of 5 plus. Like, it was an awesome experience. My favorite Knight's Armament rifle I've ever shot and reviewed. For some reason, with this suppressor, which doesn't get as good of a tone, definitely a lot more resistance, it does not allow this gun to operate very well. Like when you watch the review of this suppressor, you're going to see me struggle with this gun. But I'm not 100% sure it was the suppressor's fault, because I reviewed the gun and I took the bolt carrier out and I cleaned the upper and I like wiped it down and I put new oil on it. Then I took it back to the range and I reviewed this suppressor. Once again, wiped down the carrier, put some fresh oil on it, but I didn't do a detail cleaning on it. Then I reviewed these two suppressors on the same night. And by the time I got to this one ran okay. This one, as I said, I had tons of problems. I actually thought this one was going to run the most reliable because of the back pressure and being that this is a direct impingement AR. But supersonic, it hits harder. And you definitely feel like with this can here and the larger one, I really feel like the gun is perfectly gassed. When I put this one on, this gun hits so much harder. And it was the same ammunition. I was using 3 types. I was using rifle line, 125 grain, MagTech 123 grain, and Winchester 200 grain. That was the subsonic. And when I reviewed this, I was using the MagTech 123 grain. And man, did it make this gun hit so much harder. Like, you felt it coming back in your shoulder. Like, I mean, it didn't hurt or anything. It's like an AR, but even when I reviewed the footage, man, it bounces so much more. And then I started to have a couple of times on supersonic, the gun not picking up the next round. Like, it was having feeding problems. So maybe the gun was being overgassed. I don't know. Normally, overgassing doesn't cause that. Maybe the gun was dirty. I did wipe down the feed ramps. I made sure the magazines were clean. I don't know. I started to have function issues with this thing. Not bad on supersonic. Now, subsonic, completely different story. It was a struggle bus. This thing was a struggle bus trying to get this thing to work with subsonic. I mean, it had a good tone to it, but man, I'd only be able to get through 3 or 4 rounds before the gun would essentially short stroke. So the carrier was coming back far enough, I think, to eject the round. It would come back far enough where if the bolt started to go forward, it would start to pick up the round out of the magazine, but it didn't have enough momentum because it didn't come back far enough to really extract that round from the magazine and get it into the chamber. Sometimes it would get on the feed ramp and stop. Sometimes it would stop on the magazine. It was short stroking. And I thought this thing would work great, and it didn't. So I discovered that this gun loves this suppressor the most. Works okay and good with this one. This one is, I don't know. And because you can't change anything on the gas system, this one was bad. Okay, I mean, it performed fine, and I'm going to do the review from the perspective of just reviewing the suppressor. I will mention that possibly, based off of what your setup is with your AR, you need to figure out, of course, what ammunition runs best in it, and if you need more or less resistance when it comes to the gases. Because I could see where more resistance, depending on how you're going to set up, could be a good thing. And in some ways, it could be a bad thing. So that's the thing about 300 Blackout. It's not a plug-and-play system like an AR-15 and 5.56. Most of the time, it doesn't matter if you're running cheap ammo, high-quality target ammo, whatever. An AR-15 is going to run. It just runs. It's not as ammo-sensitive. 300 Blackout, it is so freaking ammo-sensitive. Every gun is set up different. How the gas system is, the suppressor you're using, the buffer spring weight, everything matters, and you got to get it just right. And then once you tune it in, you really can't change anything because you're like, hey, I'll try this ammo. Now the gun doesn't work. So I'm going to do my best in the review to just talk about how hot does this get? Does it dissipate heat? What's the tone? Does it change the ballistics any? But man, it is a struggle bus to get this gun to run. I will talk about the fact that People that would only watch this review might say, oh, you didn't clean that, or your AR is not just again. I'll be like, listen, it runs. I'm using the same ammunition I used with these two, and it runs great. I put this can on here, and it does not. But I think aesthetically, I actually like this one the best because it's the smallest and most narrow. It kind of looks like they're old school ones. But performance-wise, this one was a big letdown. But I don't think they make this one anymore because they've gone to this tech here. So I have to double check. I've seen the SKUs for these, certain websites and things, but they're all out of stock, if that makes any sense. So a lot of times when you see that, it means that you can't get them because they're discontinued. So I think this one's discontinued. But I did see it on Knights Armament's website. But I don't know. But it's a 3D printed suppressor. So all these are. So very interesting. And so right now that's what I am working on. And then maybe later this week, I still have a couple other things I need to get to the range. I still got to go over and see my friend Jack, number 1, because I got some guns that I finished reviewing. I need to get back to him. And then Jack, number 2, you guys saw the amazing belt-fed semi-auto HK. That's another thing I have to get to the long distance range. So Jack number 2, if you're watching this, I will get to that review hopefully next week because I just got to go to the 100-yard range. I just don't have time until when I have all that time off. But anyway, that's what I'm doing. Give you guys a little bit of first impressions on some suppressors. So what do you guys think? Knights Armament makes pretty darn cool and interesting stuff. And what do you think about these suppressors? Have you guys ever used any of these? Do you guys own them yourself? And what do you think about their performance? So let me know in the comment section below. And if you made it to the end of today's video, the word of the day. Well, the word of the day. What can we say is the word of the day? We're going to say print. Print, because these are all 3D printed suppressors. I didn't know that you could print with Inconel, but apparently they can. It's amazing. Yeah, it's pretty darn cool. So anyway, thanks for joining me here in the garage. Thanks for chatting guns with me, talking shop. I absolutely love just our dialogue and being able to geek out on stuff like this. It's always so much fun to learn. And I learn as much from you guys as hopefully you guys learn from me. And I like to just share this journey that we're on because when I get to review cool stuff like this and discover how it works, I just want to share that information with people. So there you go. So let me know what you think in the comment section below. And as always, thanks for watching.